Everyone trusted him with their cars, yet no one questioned why their vehicles kept breaking down in the same strange ways. Until one customer decided to pay attention. And what he discovered destroyed everything.
I told you to tighten that bolt. Now look what you've done.
Before Chidi owned a mechanic workshop, he was an apprentice under a master mechanic named Mr. Martins. Chidi worked there for 5 years. That is a super long time. It was the full time he needed to learn the job. But Mr. Martins was not a nice teacher. He never let Chidi touch the car engine or learn the real car magic. Chidi had to only do boring chores, wash the oily car parts, clean the shiny tools, and run very fast to buy small car pieces from the noisy market. Chidi really wanted to learn the big secrets of fixing cars, but every time Chidi asked, "How does this engine work?" Mr. Martins would get angry and shout, "Stop! Your hands are too clumsy. You will break the customer's car." Chidi felt sad. His own papa drove a very old, tired taxi that was always sick and stopping. His little sister needed money for her school books. Sometimes they couldn't even buy the wood to make a fire to cook dinner. Then the big day came. Chidi had finished his 5 years of learning. Chidi went to Mr. Martins with a hopeful smile. He waited for Mr. Martins to say, "Chidi, you are now a master. Here is your certificate and some starting money." But Mr. Martins looked at him with cold eyes. He did not smile. "Chidi," he said, "you have finished your time, but you are not ready. You have not proven yourself. I cannot give you a certificate. Go." Chidi's heart felt like a balloon that had lost all its air. 5 years of working hard, and Aga Martins sent him away with nothing. Chidi went home with no job, no money, and no good plan. He tried to help his papa fix the taxi car with the small bits of car knowledge he had secretly learned. Sometimes, the car woke up for a little while. Sometimes, it stayed asleep. One evening, Chidi sat outside, watching his poor papa count tiny coins just to buy a little bit of car fuel. Papa's face was wet with worry. Chidi felt like a very useless boy. He thought, "Mr. Martins stole my time. He never wanted me to be a real mechanic." Then, a kind, grown-up friend who knew Chidi's sad story gave him smart advice. "Chidi," the friend said softly, "Mr. Martins's paper is just paper. If you know how to fix cars in your heart, then stop waiting for permission. Start tiny. Nobody who is a big hero starts on the top floor." That was a big idea. If the master wouldn't give him his magic, Chidi would have to make the magic himself. That night, Chidi did not sleep well. He kept thinking. The next week, he used the small money he had saved over the years, money from tips and small errands, and rented a very small space under a tree along the roadside. He arranged old tires as boundary markers, spread a tarpaulin sheet on the ground, and set up his few tools in a wooden box. He borrowed a jack from someone and bought basic oils and filters. Nothing was perfect, but it was his. He opened his workshop with a small handwritten signboard nailed to the tree. Chidi Auto Care, honest and affordable. The road ahead was not easy, but he told himself, "I will do everything to make this work." He did not know that this promise would later push him into decisions he never planned to make. When Chidi opened his workshop, he expected that once he serviced cars for people, they would return again and again for regular maintenance. That was how he believed businesses grew. He arrived early every morning, swept the area under the tree, arranged his tools, and waited with hope. In his first 2 weeks, a few people came. Some wanted oil changes, some wanted brake checks, some came to fix flat tires. They were mostly neighbors and church members who wanted to support his new business. He handled all of them carefully and honestly. He did not rush or cut corners. He worked with patience, the same way he used to dream of when he was still an apprentice. When each customer started their car and heard how smooth the engine sounded, they smiled with satisfaction. One of them said, "Chidi, you have good hands. You know this work well. I will come back." Another one said, "This engine is running like new. Let me tell my brother about you." Someone even promised to bring his office car on the weekend. Those words made Chidi's heart feel warm. He believed he was finally walking into his future. But 2 months passed, and none of them returned. He waited every day, sometimes from morning until evening, but no familiar customer drove in. At first, he thought maybe their cars were still running well, or they were planning to return when something went wrong. He kept faith. However, he started seeing them on the road, at the filling station, in church parking lot, at the junction. Anytime he greeted them, they replied with joy. "My car is still running perfectly. You did an excellent job. The engine is so smooth now." Some even added proudly, "It has been 2 months, and I haven't had any issues." They said it as a compliment, but to Chidi, it was becoming a problem. People loved his work so much that they did not need to return soon. Some came only once every 3 months. Some came after 4 full months, or even more. His hands were skilled, but his workshop was not growing. Soon, reality started pressing his chest. His rent for the space was due. He needed to buy more engine oil and filters. Transport and food money was increasing. His father needed money to repair the taxi again. His sister's school was sending warning letters about unpaid fees. He had no side income, no partner, no sponsor. He tried reducing his prices, but that only brought people who serviced their cars once and disappeared for months. He tried offering free tire pressure checks for returning customers, but nobody returned fast enough to enjoy it. One evening, he sat alone under the tree, his back resting against the rough bark. He looked around the small space he built with his last savings, and fear entered his heart for the first time. He asked himself, "Can honesty alone carry me? What if this workshop closes before it even starts? What if all my years under Oga Martins became useless? How will my family survive?" That was when he remembered something Uncle Emeka once told him at a beer parlor months ago when he complained about business. Repeat customers are the secret to survival in this work. He repeated it softly to himself that night. Repeat customers. Repeat customers. He lay awake on his mat, staring at the ceiling, thinking deeply about it. He did not sleep until morning. By the next month, his situation grew worse. Bills increased, customers reduced, new ones did not come often. He knew he needed to do something different, something that would make customers return faster. But he didn't know what it would be yet. All he knew was that he could not continue like this. And that was how the first dangerous idea entered his mind. Not as evil, but as survival. After many quiet days at the workshop, Chidi started watching how other mechanics in the area ran their businesses. He noticed something he never thought about before. Some workshops were always full, even when their work was not as neat as his. Some customers went back to the same mechanic every 2 or 3 weeks, no matter how expensive or rough the service was. Some even complained loudly about repeated problems, but still returned. That made him think, maybe returning is not always about perfect work. One afternoon, while he was buying spare parts at a local auto parts market, he overheard 2 mechanics talking. "My customers always come back fast," one bragged. "Nah, because your repair no dey last," the other replied, laughing. "You dey do temporary work." The first one shrugged. "Temporary or not, my pocket no dey empty." Chidi walked away silently, but those words stayed with him. That night, he sat with his father in their small sitting room. His father didn't know anything was wrong. He only said, "Chidi, don't give up. Your time will come." Chidi nodded, but his mind kept wondering. What will make customers come back? What will make the car develop small problem quickly? What will make them need me again? Then he remembered something. During his days with Oga Martins, he once saw Martins tighten a bolt only halfway on a customer's alternator bracket. When Chidi asked why, Martins didn't answer directly. He only smiled and said, "Sometimes you have to leave room for future work." Chidi didn't understand it then, but now, that memory lit a small spark in his mind. He did not jump into the idea immediately. He spent days thinking, pacing around his small workshop, checking his near-empty toolbox, staring at his rent reminder note pinned to the tree. After 3 more silent days and only 1 paying customer, the fear returned. If I don't do something, this workshop will close. He made a decision. Not because he wanted to damage cars, but because he believed if customers experienced small issues earlier, they would return sooner for help. He told himself it would be minor things, nothing dangerous, nothing that would cause accidents, just small inconveniences that would bring them back. He sat alone under the tree after closing time, holding a wrench in his hand, and stared at it for a long time. A part of him said, "This is wrong. Don't do it." Another part replied, "You are not harming them seriously. They will only come back faster. You are only trying to survive." The next morning, his first customer came for an oil change and brake inspection. Chidi did everything properly, changed the oil, checked the brakes, cleaned the filters. But before the customer drove away, Chidi looked under the hood one more time and slightly loosened one bolt on the battery terminal. Not completely loose, just enough that after a few days of vibration from driving, the connection would weaken and the car might not start smoothly. His heart beat fast as he closed the hood and smiled at the customer. "Everything is fine now, sir. Drive safely." He did the same for the next customer that week, and the next. At first, nothing happened. But 5 days later, he heard a familiar voice calling his name from the roadside. "Chidi, please help me. My car is not starting well." Then another came that same evening, then another 3 days after. They did not insult him. They did not suspect him. They simply asked for help. They all paid. He acted concerned and helpful. He told them, "It is normal. Sometimes connections get weak. Next time, I will use better tightening." Within 4 weeks, his workshop changed from almost empty to regularly busy. What he wanted had started working, but he did not know he had opened a door he was not strong enough to close. Within a short time, Chidi's workshop became one of the busiest along that road. Car owners no longer stayed away for 3 or 4 months. By the second or third week after service, they were already returning with small complaints. Battery not charging well, engine misfiring, strange rattling noise, dashboard warning lights. Some came very early in the morning before work. Some called him at night, sounding frustrated. Some came looking worried or close to tears because they had important meetings and their car was acting strange. Chidi always welcomed them with a calm face, even though he already knew what they came for. "Don't worry," he would say. "I will check it properly. These things happen." They paid again, sometimes even more than before, because they were desperate. Soon, every week felt like month end. His pocket stayed full. His toolbox was always stocked with spare parts. He upgraded his workshop gradually. A small generator for power tools, a proper canopy instead of just the tree, a rolling creeper to slide under cars, a standing fan, branded work, shirts with his business name, a new signboard with painted letters. People in the area even started calling him the reliable mechanic because he never turned customers away, no matter the time. And because so many customers were returning often, he came up with another money idea. He started selling car care products. He bought empty bottles, printed stickers with his workshop name, and filled them with regular engine flush mixed with cheap additives. It brought short-term smoothness, and customers believed it was working. Soon, he was earning from repairs, repeated repairs, and product sales. His income tripled. He sent money home more often. His father stopped driving the taxi so hard. His sister's school fees were cleared. His mother cooked better food. Everything looked like success. Until he got comfortable, then confident, then greedy. Since the first loose bolt brought many customers back, Chidi believed more sabotage would bring even faster results. He started experimenting. A slightly loosened oil drain plug that would cause slow leaking, a disconnected sensor wire that would trigger dashboard warnings, a partially clogged air filter that would reduce engine performance, small cuts on rubber hoses that would develop into leaks after a few weeks. He told himself he was still in control. He told himself nothing serious would happen. He told himself it was still business strategy, not harm. But he was no longer doing tiny things. He was doing routine sabotage, convinced that nothing would go wrong. At first, the results came faster. Some customers returned after 1 week with check engine lights on. They didn't suspect him. They believed it was bad fuel, poor road conditions, or just old car problems. They trusted his hands, not knowing those hands had changed. One afternoon, a man returned looking very upset. "Chidi, this car is giving me problems every week. What is happening? I just serviced it with you last month." When Chidi opened the hood, he noticed oil stains under the engine that were worse than he expected. His heart skipped, but he hid his reaction. "It's nothing serious," he said. "Maybe the gasket is getting old. I will replace it." The man nodded but looked frustrated. He paid for the gasket replacement and drove away. That same week, another customer returned, saying his brakes felt spongy, even though Chidi had just worked on them 2 weeks ago. Then another came, complaining about a knocking sound that wasn't there before. Still, no one suspected him. They kept returning. They kept paying. They kept trusting. Chidi should have stopped. But money feels sweeter when it comes easily. And stopping felt like starting from zero again. What he did not know was that someone had started observing quietly, and that silence was more dangerous than any complaint. Among the many car owners who visited Chidi's workshop, there was one quiet man named Ifanyi. He wasn't loud, he didn't argue about prices, and he didn't like wasting time at mechanic shops. He only came because his colleague at work recommended Chidi. He brought his Toyota Corolla for a full service and left satisfied, praising Chidi like others once did. But 2 weeks later, Ifanyi's car started showing a strange electrical problem. The battery kept dying overnight, even though it was fairly new. He wasn't shouting or angry like others. He was calm and observant. He drove back to the workshop and spoke politely. "Chidi, something is wrong with my battery or charging system. Please check it properly for me." As Chidi worked on the car, Ifanyi watched his hands, his movements, and his reactions. Something didn't feel normal to him. Each time customers came with complaints, Chidi looked too relaxed, too ready, too unsurprised, like he already knew what they came for. But Ifanyi didn't say anything. He simply paid for the alternator check and drove away. 3 days later, the same problem returned. This time, Ifanyi didn't drive straight to Chidi. Instead, he took his car to another mechanic in a different area, someone who didn't know Chidi. He explained the situation. The new mechanic inspected everything carefully, and then said something that made Ifanyi freeze. "Sir, your battery terminals are loose. Very loose. This is why your battery keeps losing connection. But this is strange, because you said you just serviced this car recently. No proper mechanic will leave terminals like this." Ifanyi's mind started working. He didn't say anything to the new mechanic. He just paid him, got his car fixed properly, and drove home thinking deeply. That evening, he called his colleague who had referred him to Chidi and asked, "Have you had any problems with your car after Chidi worked on it?" His colleague paused, then said, "Actually, yes. Small issues. I thought it was just normal wear and tear." That was when Ifanyi became sure it wasn't coincidence. He didn't report to police. He didn't make noise. He didn't confront Chidi. Yet. He only told his colleague, "Let's test him. Bring your car to him for service, but this time I will follow you. I want to watch him carefully." His colleague agreed. They went to the workshop together on a Saturday morning and pretended everything was normal. The colleague acted like a regular returning customer and asked for an oil change and general checkup. Ifanyi sat on a plastic chair nearby, like he was just keeping his friend company, scrolling on his phone, but watching everything. Chidi welcomed them warmly, not suspecting anything. While working, he talked and laughed as usual, explaining what he was doing, showing them the old oil filter, pointing out worn brake pads. Everything seemed professional. But Ifanyi never took his eyes off him. He watched how Chidi finished the oil change, wiped his hands, closed the hood, and then, just before telling the customer the car was ready, Chidi opened the hood one more time. He said something about checking the coolant level. His body blocked the view for a moment. His hand moved quickly near the battery area. Then he closed the hood again and smiled. "All done, sir. Everything is perfect." Ifanyi still didn't speak. He waited. After his colleague paid and drove off, Ifanyi stood up slowly and walked toward Chidi. His voice was calm, but firm. "Chidi, I want to ask you something." Chidi turned, smiling. "Yes, sir. How can I help you?" "Why did you open the hood twice?" The smile on Chidi's face flickered. "I just wanted to check the coolant, sir. It's normal." "But you already checked everything before. Why go back?" Chidi's hands became slightly unsteady. He forced a laugh. "Sir, I just wanted to be sure. I am a thorough person." Ifanyi stepped closer. His eyes were sharp. "I brought my car here 2 weeks ago. After you worked on it, my battery kept dying. I took it to another mechanic. He said my battery terminals were very loose. Too loose. He said no good mechanic would leave it like that." The workshop went quiet. Chidi's breath changed. He tried to speak, but words stuck in his throat. Ifanyi continued. "Today, I watched you. You went back to the hood after finishing the service, What did you touch? Chidi's palm started sweating. Sir, I didn't touch anything. I swear. Then you won't mind if I check my friend's car right now? Before Chidi could respond, Ifani walked to the colleague's car, popped the hood, and leaned in. He didn't know much about engines, but he looked carefully at the battery. Then he touched the terminal bolt. It moved easily under his fingers. Too easily. He turned to Chidi with fire in his eyes. This bolt is loose. You just worked on this car 10 minutes ago. Everything else is tight, but this one bolt is loose. Why? Other customers who were waiting nearby heard the raised voice and moved closer. Chidi looked around. There was nowhere to run. No lie sounded convincing enough. One customer asked, "What is happening?" Another said, "Is it true? Is he loosening things?" Someone shouted, "Check my car too. I just came back here last week with problems." The pressure increased. Chidi's chest tightened. His vision blurred. Finally, he broke. Tears gathered in his eyes. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. Please, I didn't mean to cause big trouble. I was just trying to survive. My workshop was dying. Nobody was coming back. I have family to feed. I thought if I just did small things, they would come back and I could help them. I never wanted to cause accidents, I swear. The whole workshop erupted. Some people shouted in anger. Some insulted him. Some rushed to their cars to check what he might have done. Someone pulled out his phone and said, "I'm calling the police." Within 20 minutes, 2 police officers arrived and took Chidi away. His workshop, once filled with activity, trust, and hope, became empty. The canopy cast a shadow over the tools scattered on the ground. At the police station, Chidi sat on a wooden bench with swollen eyes and shaking hands. He didn't argue, didn't shout, and didn't try to defend himself strongly. He only whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't want things to end like this." The officer on duty asked him to explain everything from the beginning. Chidi took a deep breath and told his full story. From how he suffered under Oga Martins, to how customers didn't return, to how bills piled up, and how he remembered Uncle Emeka's words about repeat customers. He didn't hide anything. He explained about the loose bolts, the disconnected wires, the small sabotages he thought were harmless. The officer listened and wrote silently. When Chidi finished, the officer looked at him and said, "You wanted progress, but your method was criminal. In business, shortcuts always have consequences. You could have caused accidents. You could have killed someone." Chidi lowered his head. Tears dropped onto his handcuffed wrists. Later that evening, his father arrived at the station, his face filled with shock and disappointment. The old man could barely speak. "Chidi, why? We were managing. We would have survived. Why did you choose this path?" Chidi cried even harder, wishing he could go back and stop himself before it started. After hours of pleading and discussions, the officers told them that this was a serious matter. Multiple customers were filing complaints. Some reported near accidents. Some had spent huge money on repeated repairs. The case would go to court. But the biggest pain came the next morning, when Uncle Emeka visited the station. He looked older and tired. When he saw Chidi in the holding cell, his face twisted with disappointment. "Chidi, what happened? What did you do?" Chidi stood up with shaking legs. "Uncle, you told me repeat customers are the secret. I was only trying to survive. I didn't want my workshop to die." Uncle Emeka stared at him for a long, painful moment. Then he said slowly, "Chidi, when I said repeat customers, I meant do good work and build trust. Treat people right, be honest and reliable, and they will come back and bring others. I never meant sabotaging their cars. I never meant destroying them property to force them back." Chidi froze. Those words hit harder than any insult. He felt like his chest was collapsing from shame. He realized he had followed the words, but not the meaning. Uncle Emeka added, "Yes, business is hard. Yes, money is tight. But if your success is built on destroying other people's property and putting their lives at risk, it will destroy you too. You could have killed a family on the highway because of a loose bolt. Do you understand that?" More tears rolled down Chidi's face as he whispered, "I'm sorry, Uncle. I didn't think it would turn out like this." Uncle Emeka shook his head slowly. "You have skill, Chidi. You have talent. But talent without patience and integrity becomes a curse." Those words stayed in Chidi's heart like a burn mark, would never fade. The case went to court. Multiple customers testified. Mechanics were called as expert witnesses to explain how dangerous loose bolts and disconnected parts could be. The prosecutor argued that Chidi had knowingly endangered lives for profit. Chidi's lawyer tried to argue that he never intended to cause accidents, only to create minor issues for repeat business. But the damage was done. After weeks of trial, the judge found Chidi guilty of criminal sabotage and reckless endangerment. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison and ordered to pay compensation to affected customers. His workshop equipment was seized and sold to help pay the fines. Chidi sat in his prison cell, staring at the concrete walls, thinking about everything he had lost. His reputation, his business, his freedom, his father's respect. All because he chose shortcuts over patience. For the first year, he barely spoke to anyone. He worked in the prison workshop, fixing small things, but the joy was gone. Every time he held a wrench, he remembered the moment he decided to loosen that first bolt. He remembered the moment he chose survival over honesty. In his second year, something changed. A prison chaplain visited regularly and spoke to inmates about redemption and second chances. Chidi started attending the sessions. Slowly, he began to accept responsibility fully, not just with words, but in his heart. One day, the chaplain asked him, "If you could go back, what would you do differently?" Chidi thought for a long time before answering. "I would have kept working honestly, even if it was slow. I would have found other ways to survive, maybe taken a side job, maybe asked for help. But I would never have touched someone's car with bad intentions, because now I see that my shortcut destroyed everything I worked for and hurt people who trusted me." When Chidi was finally released after serving his sentence, he returned home quietly. His father had grown older, his mother's hair had more gray, and his sister was already in university, paying her own fees with a part-time job. They welcomed him back, but the atmosphere was heavy with unspoken pain. Chidi did not try to open another workshop. He knew no one would trust him. Instead, he took a job as a general laborer at a construction site. He carried cement, mixed mortar, and loaded trucks. It was hard work, far from the skilled mechanic job he once loved, but he did it without complaining. One afternoon, while he was on lunch break, an old man's car broke down near the construction site. The man looked confused and helpless. Other workers ignored it, but Chidi felt something pull at his heart. He walked over slowly. "Sir, do you need help?" The old man looked at him with tired eyes. "My car just stopped. I don't know what happened." Chidi hesitated. He hadn't touched a car engine in over 2 years, but he asked politely, "Can I check it for you? I used to be a mechanic." The man nodded. Chidi opened the hood and saw the problem immediately. A loose alternator belt. Simple fix. He tightened it carefully, checked the connections, and closed the hood gently. "Try starting it now, sir." The engine roared to life. The old man's face lit up with relief. He reached for his wallet. "How much do I pay you?" Chidi shook his head. "No, sir. I didn't do it for money. I just wanted to help." The man looked surprised, but grateful. He thanked Chidi and drove away. That small moment felt like the first clean breath Chidi had taken in years. No shortcuts, no hidden agenda, just honest help. Weeks later, the same old man returned to the construction site looking for Chidi. When he found him, he said, "Young man, I asked around about you. I know your story. I know what you did and what happened to you. But I also see that you are trying to change. I own a small transport company. I need someone to maintain my vehicles, not as head mechanic, but as assistant. If you are interested, and if you promise me honesty, I will give you a chance." Chidi's eyes filled with tears. He nodded slowly. "Sir, I promise you honesty. I will never repeat my mistakes. Never." The old man hired him. Chidi worked quietly and carefully under a senior mechanic, doing only what he was told, never cutting corners, never taking shortcuts. He earned little, but he earned it with clean hands. Months passed, then years. Slowly, people began to see that he had truly changed. Some customers who once knew his story began to trust him again, not because they forgot what he did, but because they saw genuine transformation. One day, the senior mechanic retired, and the old man promoted Chidi to lead mechanic. Chidi stood in the workshop, holding a wrench in his hand, and remembered the moment under the tree when he had made his first terrible choice. This time, he made a different promise to himself. I will build my success slowly. I will do honest work, and I will never, ever betray trust again. He wrote a note and taped it inside his toolbox, where only he could see it. Slow success with peace is better than fast success with regret. And every morning before starting work, he read those words to remind himself of the price he paid for forgetting them. Moral lesson: when your skill is genuine, patience will reward you in the right way. Real success is built on honesty, not tricks or shortcuts. If your growth comes from harming others, it may look like progress at first, but it will eventually destroy everything you worked for. Protect your name, do good work, and allow your blessings to grow naturally. Slow success with peace is better than fast success with regret.